afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, and these are the news trending. 6 civilians and 2 soldiers are killed in an exchange of fire between the Lebanese army and drug dealers at a nightclub in Maameltain. Ministers confirm that the state has secured the payment of overdue salaries for security personnel, ending a long-standing financial dilemma. And the Russian airline whose passenger plane crashed on Saturday in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula says a technical fault could not have caused the disaster. 8 people have been killed in an exchange of fire at dawn between the Lebanese army and drug dealers at a nightclub in Maameltain. The raid at Wed Club near Jounieh has killed a sergeant major and a soldier, 4 of the suspects and 2 women present at the scene. Both soldiers succumbed to their wounds upon their arrival to hospital. A source says the suspects were identified as Mohammed Hussein Zaiter, Mahdi Hussein Zaiter, Ali Ibrahim Ayoub, and Hamza Bassam Aziz. It was unclear who fired the bullets that hit the bystanders. Military prosecutor Judge Sa'ed arrived to inspect the scene and tasked the military police with conducting an investigation. The army said the gun battle broke out after coming under fire by the suspected drug dealers. The 2 suspects had 11 search warrants and 6 arrest warrants against them, according to the army. Ministers have confirmed that the state has secured the payment of overdue salaries for security personnel, ending a long-standing financial dilemma. Following a meeting with Defense Minister Samir Muqbil and Army Commander General Jean Ahwaji at the Defense Ministry in Yerzeh, Finance Minister Ali Hassan Khalil has called on lawmakers to stop obstructing the cabinet. He said the salary crisis ended thanks to extensive efforts exerted by Prime Minister Tamam Slam and Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri. The minister said a legal and exceptional solution was adopted to resolve the crisis, expressing keenness to implement the law and preserving the Constitution. Khalil's remarks come despite his constant warnings that salaries of public sector employees, including the military, are in jeopardy unless the cabinet meets to approve the allocation bill. Sheikh Nabil Kaouk, a senior Hezbollah official, says freeing the Lebanese servicemen held by militants in the outskirts of Arsal is in the hands of the March 14 coalition. He explained that the kidnappers were backed by known countries supporting March 14, and as such, the group should take advantage of their friendship with these countries to take a national position and ensure the release of the servicemen. 25 soldiers and policemen remain held by the militant groups on the outskirts of Arsal after they were captured in a 5-day battle in August of last year, pitting the army against the Nusra Front and ISIS. They were among more than 30 who were initially abducted by the militants. ISIS has beheaded 2, Nusra shot dead 2 others, and 8 were released earlier on. The government has so far been unable to secure their release. Interior Minister Nuhat al-Mashnouk says Lebanon has managed to combat extremism and terrorism through national unity and effective security services. The Interior Minister, who is on a visit to Bahrain, made his remarks on Saturday evening during a reception hosted in his honor by the Lebanese Chargé d'Affaires in Manama, Ibrahim Assaf. Mashnouk said that moderation was the only way to success, whereas extremism would only lead to destruction. He said, quote, despite all difficulties and sacrifices made, starting with the assassination of martyr Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri and until the assassination of former Minister Mohammed Shattah, we still stick to moderation in face of regional alliances, terrorism and extremism. The minister added that some sides insisted on destroying national identities and states, whether through forming a caliphate or a crescent. While ISIS has the goal of establishing an Islamic caliphate, Iran's rivals accuse the Islamic Republic of planning to establish a Shiite crescent stretching from Iran to Lebanon through Iraq and Syria. On the 3rd day of his visit to the Gulf nation, Mashnouk and Bahraini Interior Minister Sheikh Rashid bin Abdullah Al Khalifa discussed regional developments and topics of mutual interest. Mashnouk also attended a seminar on the repercussions of Syria's war on Lebanon. A Palestinian man has been shot dead by Israeli forces after allegedly trying to stab a soldier at a checkpoint in the occupied West Bank. Israeli authorities said the shooting, which took place at the Jalame checkpoint near the city of Jenin, has also been confirmed by the Palestinian Health Ministry. Israeli police said a second Palestinian was arrested in the alleged attack. Since October 1st, Israeli forces and settlers have killed at least 73 Palestinians, including unarmed protesters, bystanders, and attackers across Israel, the occupied West Bank, including occupied East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. 9 Israelis have died in stabbing or shooting incidents in the same period. The latest killing comes a day after Israeli soldiers shot dead a Palestinian who they alleged had earlier attempted to attack them in the Beit Ainun village of Hebron. Earlier this week, Israeli forces killed 3 Palestinians in one day, including an 8-month-old baby who suffocated from tear gas inhalation. And coming up next, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan hails his party's election victory as a vote for unity and integrity. More details right next. Welcome back. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has hailed his party's election victory as a vote for unity and integrity after the ruling Justice and Development Party, known as the AK Party, took back a majority in parliament. With almost all of the ballots counted early today, Erdogan's party won 49.4% of the vote, enough for a majority of 316 seats. The main opposition, CHP, won about 25% of the vote, while the nationalist MHP party secured 11.9%. For its part, the pro-Kurdish HDP party has claimed a little over 10.5% to get 59 seats. In a statement after his party's win, Erdogan said the result delivered an important message to the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party that oppression and bloodshed cannot coexist with democracy. The Russian airline whose passenger plane crashed on Saturday in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula has insisted that a technical fault could not have caused the disaster. The airline company said the disaster was most likely caused by an external impact, and the only plausible reason can be a mechanical impact on the plane. Investigators from several countries have joined an Egypt-led probe to determine what brought down Russian airline Koga Limavia's Flight 9268 on Saturday, killing all 224 people on board. Russian officials said the plane, which was en route from Sharm el-Sheikh to St. Petersburg, broke apart in mid-flight as international investigators began probing the reasons behind the crash. The second plane carrying victims of the Russian passenger jet crash is set to leave Egypt this evening as relatives prepare to identify the remains of their loved ones in St. Petersburg. The first plane reportedly touched down in Russia's second largest city early this morning, carrying the remains of 140 of the victims. Iran has begun decommissioning uranium enrichment centrifuges under the terms of the nuclear deal struck with 6 world powers in July. During a visit to Tokyo, Tehran's nuclear chief Ali Akbar Salehi was quoted as saying that the measures include reducing the number of active centrifuge machines. Under the July 14 agreement, Iran is to curb its nuclear program under the UN supervision to ensure it cannot be used to make a nuclear weapon in exchange for the removal of sanctions that have isolated Tehran and hobbled its economy. In a separate development that appeared to confirm the implementation of work that started, 20 hardline members of Iran's parliament reportedly wrote to President Hassan Rouhani to complain about dismantling centrifuges in 2 enrichment facilities at Natanz and Fordow. A powerful cyclone has already started wreaking havoc in Yemeni waters, killing at least 2 people and injuring 9 others on the island of Socotra as it tracks steadily towards the country's coastline. Cyclone Chapala, which has formed in the Arabian Sea, destroyed more than 100 homes on the island on Sunday, as it also uprooted trees and sank fishing boats. The U.S. Joint Typhoon Warning Center reports that Chapala is expected to make landfall early tomorrow morning. By the time it makes a landfall, however, Chapala is expected to weaken to the equivalent of a Category 1 hurricane. Moving on to Asia, South Korean President Park Geun-hye and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe have held their first formal bilateral talks since both leaders took office, seeking to move beyond a bitter wartime history that has plagued ties between 2 of Washington's key Asian allies. The meeting this morning was a diplomatic breakthrough for Abe, who has sought talks with Park amid a push by the U.S. for Japan and South Korea to improve relations in the face of an increasingly assertive China. The Asian neighbors have struggled to find common ground over Japan's 1910-1945 colonization of Korea, particularly the issue of comfort women. And still in the region, the U.S. and South Korean defense chiefs have urged North Korea to immediately cease all activities related to its nuclear program and said they will have no tolerance for any military provocation by Pyongyang. U.S. Defense Secretary Ash Carter and South Korean Defense Minister Han Min-koo also expressed grave concern over the North's intent to conduct a long-range missile launch and a nuclear test.
Both are stark reminders that North Korea is an up-close, dangerous, and continuing threat to the security of the peninsula and the region. But together, we will meet that threat. It's simply because in the past, the United States carried out those tasks because we were planning on having OPCON. Now that the ROK will have OPCON, it needs some of the capabilities that used to be had by the United States only. So it's developing those capabilities, and that's why it takes a little bit of time to reach the point of OPCON transition, and that's why we're taking the time to get there in a way that will allow the Republic of Korea to fully discharge those important responsibilities.
Oscar Pistorius faces an appeal on November 3rd by prosecutors who argue that he should have been convicted of murder, not culpable homicide, for killing girlfriend Riva Steenkamp. The Paralympic gold medalist was released on parole on October 19th, just short of a year into his 5-year sentence. Pistorius, 28, who was found guilty on the lesser charge when he fired 4 shots through a locked bathroom door, hitting and killing Steenkamp, is currently confined to his uncle Arnold's home in a wealthy suburb of the capital, Pretoria. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a recap of our top stories. 6 civilians and 2 soldiers are killed in an exchange of fire between the Lebanese army and drug dealers at a nightclub in Mameltine. Ministers confirm that the state has secured the payment of overdue salaries for security personnel, ending a long-standing financial dilemma. And the Russian airline whose passenger plane crashed on Saturday in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula says a technical fault could not have caused the disaster. Those are your Monday headlines from us here at Future Television. I'm Linda Tamima. Thank you all for tuning in this afternoon. Take care.